what triggered it. The F-15E Strike Eagle, flying a mission over central Iran in the vicinity of Isfahan. Isfahan's important because Isfahan is an Iranian city where Iran had critical enrichment capabilities, uranium processing capabilities, and there were estimates in the U.S. intelligence community that deep tunnels in the mountains around Isfahan were used to store some critical components, including 50-kilogram containers holding uranium hexafluoride feedstock enriched to 60%. This is the critical material that Iran could use if it were pursuing a nuclear weapons program. And so, now to have an F-15E Strike Eagle flying over this area, there's any number of reasons why it could. It's a strike aircraft, but the crew composition is of curiosity because, in the back seat was a colonel as the weapons systems officer. And normally when you have a colonel in the back seat, he's serving more than the weapons systems officer. He becomes a mission commander, meaning that his job is to supervise and oversee the actions of numerous other aircraft involved in a specified mission. Something was going on. Something was getting ready to go down in Isfahan when the plane got shot down. So now you have two pilots down. We have a pilot and this colonel down. We send out a normal combat search and rescue mission, which is already online. I mean, when you launch aircraft, you have a CSAR capability ready to roll. And here they launched two HH-60 Pave Hawks, I think, Air Force Special Operations birds with teams on board. The composition team, probably Air Force Special Tactics operators, pararescuemen, and maybe the Special Forces or Rangers, depending on who got tasked with it. And they go in to pick up these two crew. They get one, but they also get fired on, and both of the Pave Hawks are damaged. One was filmed trailing black smoke, and they make it back to Kuwait, but they're out of combat. They're done. So now you need a backup plan. You need the CSAR to the CSAR, and so it's not a problem to scrape that capability together. But the president said something interesting in his statements earlier today. He talked about how the leaking of information about one pilot being picked up but another aircrew member missing caused great consternation in the White House and in the Pentagon. Yes, you don't want to have any leakage of this information, but why this guy? Why this mission? Why was the president suddenly so bent out of shape that he then did something else? He said, we can't wait to get the next CSAR mission spun up. We have to go now to get this guy out, which means now we're looking for assets that are available. Enter these two MC-130s that fly into Iran and land at a agricultural airfield, an improvised airfield, so to speak. It's not an improved surface. The MC-130 is designed to land on unimproved surfaces. They can land in the desert, and these aircraft are flown in. Okay, they land and they offload, according to the president, three MH or AH-6 Little Bird helicopters. These are small helicopters. They have a range of about 250, combat radius 250 miles, not enough to get in there and out on their own. They have to be flown in. Now, some people said this doesn't make any sense. Why would you send in two C-130s in these helicopters? It's a standard combat search and rescue mission profile, ladies and gentlemen. It's trained all the time. If you want to look at it, Air Force Special Operations Command in May of 2023, I believe, published an entire article complete with photographs of this very profile. Two MC-130s landing on an improvised airway. In this case, it was a highway in Wyoming. Offloading four AH or MH-6 Little Birds, and they go out and they rescue a down and injured pilot. This is a standard mission profile flown by the United States Air Force and the U.S. Army's Task Force 160, the 160th Special Operations Aerial Regiment, the Night Stalkers. So say that, oh, this makes no sense. You don't know what you're talking about. This makes perfect sense. This is what they do. And this was the, this was basically the audible called by the Pentagon, because now they had to get this guy out because somebody leaked that he was still there and the Iranians were looking for him. And it's not just anybody looking for it. They're looking for the mission commander of a mission. What mission? Well, now we get more clue. First of all, the three little birds fly off and they get to the down pilot and they rescue him. They bring him back. So far, so good. But now they have to load up on the airplane. Now, what's on the airplane? This is where the president says some interesting things. First of all, he said 3 little birds. Normally, for instance, in the exercise Agile Chariot in May of 2023, there were 4 because each MC-130 can carry 2 little birds. But he said 3. And then he alluded to special gear on board, including, gear that would be used to scale mountains, gear, anti-aircraft carrier and other weaponry and other capabilities. So that's one clue. There's something different about these C-130s and what's on board. The other thing is the number of people involved. We're talking about 100, and now the composition becomes interesting because in addition to the Air Force air crews and the Army pilots from Task Force 160, Navy SEALs are the assault group on these helicopters. Navy SEALs, SEAL Team 6, Tier 1. Ladies and gentlemen, Tier 1 doesn't do combat search and rescue. I mean, they can do any mission they want, but no, the Tier 1 doesn't do combat search and rescue. They do other things. And the people providing ground security were Delta Force. Normally, ground security is done by Rangers. But here you had a large Delta contingent. We're talking about, the potential of a half a squadron or more of Delta Force operators on the ground. Something's not right here.
How many human beings is that?
Well, Delta Squadron's around 60. So a half a squadron would be 30. You might have 3 troops worth. So you could be looking at 40. Then you look at the crews of, they were talking about a total of about 100 people on ground. Okay. And you're looking at, around 20, anyway, for 12 to 20 Navy SEALs. And you're looking at, 2, 4, 6, 6 or 8 Army air crew.
So far.
Key words from segment. What took place during what has been represented as a rescue operation in the Iranian desert? F-15E Strike Eagle, flying a mission over central Iran in the vicinity of Isfahan critical enrichment capability. 50-kilogram containers holding hexafluoride feedstock enriched to 60% kernel in the back seat, mission commander. Analysis. Ritter immediately clarifies it was a rescue operation, but reveals the downed F-15E was no ordinary flight. A colonel acting as mission commander over Isfahan, site of deep tunnels storing 60% enriched uranium hexafluoride. Signals a far larger classified op was already getting ready to go down. Takeaway. The presence of a high-ranking mission commander on a routine flight proves this was never just about saving pilots. Why would a colonel be flying that exact mission?
Sure. Well, you'd send... We don't leave people behind. This is what people need to understand. And we don't leave mission commanders of perhaps the most classified special operations mission ready to be undertaken behind. And that's what really happened here. These 2 MC-130s were part of a larger JSOC raid that was getting ready to be conducted, in my opinion, against Isfahan. This was Donald Trump's war-ending maneuver to run in there and snatch the uranium hexafluoride, recover it, and withdraw and say, war's over, we got it, there's no capability to produce nuclear weapons, we can walk out of here. This is the victory Donald Trump wanted. That's why the Navy SEALs were there. The Navy SEALs practice the recovery of nuclear materials. It's an ongoing mission for them. Delta Force does as well. I'm sure on that aircraft were special explosive ordnance disposal people from one of 2 U.S. Army EOD companies that are special operations qualified. I've worked with these people in Iraq before, just so people understand. The teams that I brought into Iraq oftentimes had several Delta Force operatives, numerous CIA ground branch paramilitaries, and on at least 2 occasions, we had elite explosive ordnance disposal people from these very units whose job is to penetrate underground bunkers and stuff. We were inspecting facilities that the U.S. was thinking they may have to come back in and do things with. But so these are the guys on the ground here. This is a huge step up from this. The other thing is these airplanes are now grossly overloaded. Normally, if you're going to come in for a pure combat search and rescue, you're not going to have overloaded aircraft of this nature. You're going to have your helicopters, maybe a fuel bladder, and that's it. You're going to come in light, go out light. You're not staying there for the duration. These two MC-130s were loaded to the gills, and because they went in with this equipment, it means that they were configured with the helicopters already on board. The pallets were up front, and it would take too long for them to offload, remove the pallets, reconfigure the aircraft. So they went in with these 2 aircraft, and they landed at this airfield, and they successfully offloaded. But when they brought everything back on the aircraft, and these aircraft turned around, went down the end of the runway, because it's easy to land on a takeoff. You need as much runway as possible. So the planes are going to go all the way down at the end of the runway and make a turnaround, and then make a run. And that's where the problem came in. They got down there, and the soil there was wet and sandy, and the nose gear went down and got stuck. So the airplane couldn't get out. And if you take a look, there's a photograph that shows the 2 MC-130s, one configured pointing, in parallel with the runway, the other one at the end as if he's getting ready to make the turn. And that one's stuck. And it would have taken, according to the president, 4 hours to offload the airplanes, get them repositioned, et cetera. And it's daylight. There's no time. So the decision was made to blow the aircraft in place because on board is a lot of classified stuff, including all of the equipment that was going to be used for this Isfahan raid, I believe, was on board. And that all got blown up. They brought in 3 aircraft that people don't normally see. I think these are C-295s. They're President called them lighter aircraft, but these belong to a squadron the Air Force doesn't like to admit exists and doesn't talk about its mission profile. It's a very secretive squadron, flies out of Pope Air Force Base, and its job is clandestine insertion and extraction of resources. They do a lot of work with the CIA. They do a lot of work with SEAL Team 6, with Delta Force, and they brought in 3 of these aircraft to upload the 100 passengers that are on the ground, including this wounded person. And these planes are lighter. They can land. They don't need as long of a runway. And they were able to fly out of there, and then the other stuff got blown up. Another thing interesting about this is the aircraft that was available to this. They were able to get the MQ-9 Reaper drones on board. That means these were units already tasked to support the larger Isfahan operation. When they isolated the airfield from the Iranians, they used B-1 bombers who were configured with the precise weapons load designed to cut the roads. This means that this is, if they were going to go into Isfahan to take out the nuclear site, they're going to seize a runway. So this was a runway seizure operation that they had. Then they would isolate. They'd have air power overboard. That's what the F-15E's job was, to manage this whole air picture. B-1 bombers on position, boom. A-10s coming in, MQ-9 Reapers coming in, F-35s coming in. Basically you're going to create this safety zone while the helicopters go out with the SEALs and the Delta and the EOD guys, blow their ways into tunnel, get the stuff, bring it back, load it up, and get it out. People say that sounds far-fetched. Well, I don't know. Go back and look at Operation Eagle Claw, the original Desert One mission. That's where we landed all our guys in the middle of the desert. They're supposed to fly to a warehouse facility and then take trucks into to the embassy, rescue the people. Then the helicopters fly them out to the airport, the Tehran airport. That was going to be seized by U.S. Army Rangers. They were going to seize the airport. C-141s were going to fly in, and everybody would be loaded on and fly out. This is the way we think. This is what we do. So airport seizure was always an important part. The fatal mistake here is that they didn't. Normally, when you're going to seize an airfield, and I know this because been there, done that, got the T-shirt. you're going to send in combat controllers who are going to arrive clandestinely. Again, during the Desert One mission back in 1980, we had Jim Carney, a very famous special tactics officer, fly into the airfield with a CIA aircraft, and he did the survey. He went in and checked whether or not the surface could handle the load of the aircraft. He measured out the airfield. Then he put down the infrared lights that could be remotely triggered by the aircraft as they come in, so they can come in, trigger. You got an airfield in front of you, you land. This is what you normally do. It doesn't appear that the United States did this. It appears that we were relying on intelligence provided by the Israelis, because the Israelis, in support of their June operation, had sent in a special unit called Shell Dog. It's an Air Force commando unit. And they had surveyed this and other airfields in the region, and they had the intelligence on the airfield. And so that was in June. The weather's a little bit drier. The airfield is more compressed. That intelligence was provided to the United States military, and assumptions were made. The problem is, it's April, it's wetter, and the sand's wet, marshy, and the planes got stuck. So bad intelligence and everything. But it appears that in order to rescue this colonel, the Isfahan nuclear raid was reconfigured to become a combat search and rescue mission. And probably a good thing, because given the amount of attention this mission got, the amount of fire that brought in, we probably wouldn't have successfully pulled off the Isfahan raid. So this might have been a blessing in disguise.
Keywords from segment: Normal Combat Search and Rescue Mission 2 HH-60 Pave Hawks. Both of the Pave Hawks are damaged. One was filmed trailing black smoke, out of combat. Analysis: Standard CSAR birds are launched, recover one crewman, but take heavy fire and limp back damaged, forcing an urgent CSAR to the CSAR. The Iranians' rapid response shows the operation was already compromised. Takeaway: even textbook rescue plans collapse when the enemy is waiting. Follow World Talk Recap right now for unfiltered analysis. Hit subscribe and the bell.
There was some fire exchanged between the helicopters and some Basij elements. That's the militia of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. The Iranians say 6 Basij were killed, and the aircraft took fire. I mean, there's video of the aircraft taking fire. We don't know if they were hit or if there were casualties. This I don't know. The president's reporting none. There's a photograph that ostensibly shows a skull on the plane. That hasn't been confirmed. As things stand, I simply don't know. But the idea that we're covering up a massive amount of losses, no. If first of all, there'd be bodies on the ground. At the end of Desert One, there were 8 bodies in the Desert One scene, and those bodies were recovered by the Iranians. The Iranians have not recovered any bodies that we know of. There's no reports of special operations on the ground running, or else we'd be having other operations. I know there's something 17 members were left behind. I don't see any reason to believe that that's true.
Why would a colonel be flying on this mission? Somebody of that rank rather than a lower rank. Does that make you curious?
Well, he's a mission commander. It's not unheard of. In the weapons systems officers can be anywhere from first lieutenants to colonels.
Keywords from this segment: 2MC-130s, land at an agricultural airfield. Offload 3H, 6/image, 6 little birds. Standard mission profile: Air Force Special Operations Command published the